Hello, hello. Another day, another way to save the universe. So last night I felt like I had angel wings. And I wanted to clip them off. And I asked God, why? Why, God? Why did you give me angel wings? And God said, who else would I give it to? And I felt the whole world on my shoulders. It was so painful and so heavy. But this is where we're at right now. I am one of the most responsible people on planet Earth. Because I actually have dedicated myself to unselfish study. And that means learning the great works, not just to uplift myself, but to lift everyone. Because if I'm going to learn something, I'm going to want to share it. I'm not going to want to keep it to myself. No, not anymore. And so because of that, I've decided to dedicate myself to the spirit of transparency. And that means elucidating the situation of the deep state as it is, not as we wish it to be. Because it is far more interesting and far more fascinating than you think. It's far more real. It is so incredible. Because it's basically like the deep state exists within an information threshold. So if you're not on the inside, you're not going to know. And so that's part of the problem. There were insiders and there were outsiders. There were those who were part of the circle. And so I guess I'm part of the circle. But I'm the outsider of the circle. I'm just like you, having to shuffle my way to work. And I'm not rich, but I'm rich in knowledge, and that's enough for me. Yes, I know I look really crazy. But don't you think this is crazy? What else are you expecting when it comes to JFK and RFK? It is crazy. But it's so complicated and so sophisticated that breaking it down can only really be done by one individual. And I guess that's me, because I have the knowledge. I have the knowledge. You actually have to put your brain towards it to make it come forward. And that's what I've done. I put my brain towards making what has happened. World War I is deeply connected to JFK being killed. Moment of pause, please. So I know it's really dramatic, and I'm sorry to yell, but I'm in my car, so it's okay. I want people to know that I'm going to dedicate myself to showing you how it's connected. It's deeply connected. If we want to figure out how JFK died, we have to look at World War I and how that happened and who was responsible. Because Franz Ferdinand was assassinated for a purpose, for a reason. And it's very sad. But in many ways, he had it coming. I'm sorry. Franz Ferdinand had it coming. When you actually are connected to the people who took out Franz Ferdinand, you understand. And because of that, you see the cruelty that he inflicted upon innocent animals. The wonder and the beauty of God had to be protected. And for that, a great war was started. The true cause of World War I is connected to animal rights. Okay? It is started by vegetarians, by vegans, by theosophists. And now I'm going to make you jump towards World War II. Because when you know the cause of World War I, you're going to know the cause of World War II. And it is just as much connected because it is the same individuals again. I'm sorry, this is the real history. The Women's Social and Political Union, they caused basically World War I in alliance with vegetarian society circles and theosophists. And then when it got to World War II, the Altai daughters were already in hand, ready to stir war again. It's because this is the history that needs to be told. And I'm going to share it. I'm going to be the record-breaking historian to rewrite the history books for everyone. Because I know this is going to uplift the knowledge threshold. Annie Besant and Charles Ledbetter were the game masters of World War I, and Dora Coons was the individual who saw it through. And then who was the game master of World War II then? Well, obviously Helena Roerich. She's making it known in 1935 that a great war is going to start and that FDR is going to have to fight this country. So she's already telling FDR that a war is coming. So in that way, it's like it was a planned war. World War I was a sudden war, and World War II was a planned war. That's the best way I can describe it, because it really is. World War I was created out of an urgency. World War II was created out of a necessity for great individuals to come out and be heroes. It's the truth. The United States still won World War II, even though there was a shadow loss. It was a bright victory, but there was a shadow failure. The failure was not to secure the victory properly. The victory wasn't secured because of Operation Paperclip. Amongst the rat lines, and of course the establishment of Evita Peron in Argentina was enough. We know what happened. The Nazis solidified themselves through institutions of power after World War II. And for that, the Cold War happened. An anti-communist movement was started. Essentially, anti-communism is the underlying cause, in a way. Because it's the shield by which they disguise the deep state. The deep state is anti-communism. Hello. It's just the simple truth. It's where the most power is, but also it's where the most spirituality is. It's almost like money and power and God are all aligned together against communism. So, that's the truth. So it opens up a lot of questions about why the history of communism is not told properly. It's because communist powers were co-opted the same way that the Southern Poverty Law Center is co-opted. All of these institutions are controlled. All these ideologies are controlled. So Ludendorff, who worked for the Kaiser during World War I, he sent Lenin on a train. But don't you think this is the same man who trained Hitler? So Lenin and Hitler were trained by the same. Lenin was not a true communist. He was an intelligence of careerism and power. So this is the true history, and it has to be told because I'm dedicated to it, because I want you to see that Marxism wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Because it got manipulated. It got manipulated by anti-Marxists. They were smart enough to manipulate it for their favor to make it look bad. So it's a story also to show the faults that a system could allow for such a penetration. But the wounds are there still, both of capitalism and communism. In a way, They are two systems that could work together, but socialism is the compromise between them when you think about it. But that's not to say that socialism has not had its faults. And that's not talking about National Socialism, because that was manipulating the popularity of socialism to get those working class votes. Rather, the democratic socialists, they did empower the Freikorps after World War I. So you see, in many ways, the left is ready to jump alliance with the right at any given moment. It's the history as old as time. It's almost like the left is ready to betray their own at any given moment, and that could explain why they enable controlled oppositions to happen. So I'm here to show the history did happen. It's just so much more conjunctive and complicated that it does make you more intelligent when you talk about it, because you see the nuance. You have to put yourselves in the shoes of the individuals who changed the world. Mussolini's girlfriend was Jewish. That's pretty much a starting place. You can see it's a wayward of power, but anti-Semitism got more and more ferocious over time. But it's not to discount that when Hitler was putting out truly society propaganda, it was outrageous, it was anti-Semitic, it was violent, and it was in many ways to draft entertainment. And it's just the truth. Because anti-Semitism was intellectualized. It was a way for people to want to buy magazines about it and editorials. And then it became more and more stupid over time. The Jewish question became less intellectual and more cartoonish. The anti-Semitic correspondences were more intellectual than, say, Nazi newspapers. I'm showing you that it's really a development that happened. It's like a top-down approach. I am a historian in my own right because I've dedicated myself the last 3 years to get to the bottom of this. And I know this has already been a lot of information, but I'm showing you, just off the top of my head, the immensity of this. It is immense. There is an information threshold. Knowledge is power. The deep state goes back to the medieval times. It's true. It's been a conflict. It goes back even farther with occult conflict between the Black Lodge and the White Lodge. And that's something that I want to get into, and it's a respect to Christians. I respect Christians. They have always been very kind to me. And I'm Christian in a way, but also I'm Jewish and Baha'i. It's part of what I feel comfortable with and my family. But also, I don't feel that people know the true history of Mary. Mary was part of the Black Lodge. Joseph was part of the White Lodge. What does that mean? It means that Mary was part of an occult matriarchal society and Joseph was part of a patriarchal occult society. Joseph's occultism came from the East. But it had cycling connections with the West. Mary's occultism came from Egypt. That was Hermetic. So what I'm showing is that there is a connection. The Magi were keepers of ancient wisdom. The first Magi were Zoroastrian. They knew ethics. They knew cosmic moral order. So the Magi then encompassed Buddhists and Sikhs. So those Zen masters, those Magi who came to Jesus, they were on Joseph's side of the White Lodge. So 3 wise men were part of the White Lodge, but Mary was already part of the Black Lodge, and so was her mother. So in a way, it was like two different secret societies were meeting to make Jesus. And I say that with respect. Just because they use the word Black Lodge, it doesn't mean it's bad. But they do keep shadow knowledge. And so that is where you have to respect the knowledge. That this is difficult knowledge that couldn't necessarily be kept by the White Lodge. In many ways, we are still living in the fallout of this. It's almost like Adam was part of the White Lodge and Eve was part of the Black Lodge. The Black Lodge wanted to extend too much rights to animals. And we're coming back to full circle. Because the White Lodge still wanted to be a hunter. Still wanted to maintain its masculinity. But the Black Lodge wanted to hone in on the femininity and to establish a peaceful society. So it's a very complicated situation. It is the yin and yang mixing together. You have to have a little bit of both. So I know this has been a long talk, but I'm here to show you that the Black Lodge and the White Lodge, it is what we are living through. And so in many ways, we are the best of both, is what I want to leave it as. We are the best of both, of the shadow and of the light. Thank you.